Hey, what's going on, you guys? It's your man James, aka JP, back again with the Toy Room, and as promised, in my Fast X or Fast 10, however you want to pronounce it, or I guess not pronounce it, but word it, in my review of the movie, I promised you guys I was going to do a tier maker, or tier list of ranking all of the Fast and the Furious movies, and, well, here we are, and I couldn't be any more excited. I don't really think there's anything else to really tell you guys about it, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and rank all of the Fast and the Furious movies, including Fast X, from my favorite to my least favorite. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, you guys, so here we are. Just really quickly, if you see me looking down, my laptop is here, so that's obviously what I am looking at. And I mean, this is pretty straightforward. We're just going to go ahead and rank all of the Fast and the Furious movies. Obviously, we have all of them listed here, including Hobbs and Shaw, which is technically a spin-off, but it's still part of I'm gonna keep calling it the FCU, the Fast Cinematic Universe. It's still part of that universe, so we do have to include it on this list. And obviously, you can see the rankings here: best, very good, good, average, and worst. Honestly, I feel like I can take out like the very good and good. I feel like there's too many options, but this isn't my list. This is a list that I found cultivated online. So we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. So we're going to start from left to right, and we're going basically backwards. So we're starting with Fast X. Now, in my review of Fast X or Fast 10, I said that I felt like this was hands down the best Fast and the Furious movie in a long time. Probably since Furious 7, I want to say. So I really enjoyed it. It was very much so more grounded than some of the more recent movies. While it still had a lot of excessive and over-the-top stuff, it wasn't as ridiculous as the stuff in Fast 9 or Fast 8. So I'm gonna put it under, see, this is where like the very good and good is kind of just like, they're kind of the same for me. I've only seen it once, so I don't know if I've had enough time to live with it that I can justify putting it in the very good category after just, one viewing. So I think just at the moment, I'm just gonna drop it under good. And that's only because I just haven't had enough times to watch it and to really, get to live with it like I have all of the other movies. So just because of that, it's going to go under good. Now, if I watch it a couple more times, it might go up to very good, or it might drop down to average, but I highly doubt that. I think if anything, the more times I watch it, the greater chance it has to go higher in the list. But right now, we're just going to put it right there in the middle as good. Now, Fast and the Furious 9, now I won't say any of these movies are necessarily bad by any stretch of the... I take that back. Well, bad, yeah, there is one bad movie that I think, personally, in my opinion, but I wouldn't say like I hate any of these movies the way that most of the general public, or I guess maybe even the internet at this point, does. So, while Fast and the Furious 9 was just completely absurd with all the over-the-top stuff that made absolutely no sense and denied the laws of physics, I don't know if it's like a bad movie. I wouldn't say it's my favorite movie. It's honestly pretty forgettable, to be honest. Now, I don't think it's bad, but it is forgettable for me. Like, I had to go back and rewatch it before watching Fast 10, just because I didn't really even remember what happened in Fast 9, just because, not that it was bad, but it was just like, it was forgettable. So I think I'll put that under average, because that's just what it is to me. It's not bad, but it's not great. It's just average. So once you get past all the over-the-top or impossible things, and you kind of have to do that with all these movies, but I think Fast and the Furious number 9 is probably the worst out of all of them for just all the over-the-top stuff that they did. It really made no sense. So yeah, I'm just going to put it there under average. Now, Hobbs and Shaw. I did not whatsoever like this movie at all. I mean, it took everything that the Fast franchise is known for, the cars, the family, all of that, and it stripped it away. And I mean, it did have The Rock and his family and everything like that, but it took away the core cast of characters to just focus on, obviously, the title of the movie, Hobbs and Shaw. And I don't know, I just didn't like the movie at all. I wasn't entertained by it. Kevin Hart randomly showing up in the movie for that one scene where they're all on a flight on a plane, that I felt like that scene lasted entirely too long and was just there just because Kevin Hart was like at the height of his career, and him and The Rock had been doing like a bunch of movies together, so it's like they kind of had to throw him in there. But I don't know, that scene just never worked for me. This movie never worked for me, and honestly, it's going under the worst category. I said I don't hate any of these movies, but Hobbs and Shaw is one that I don't like. The only time I ever go back and watch Hobbs and Shaw is if I'm doing a complete rewatch of the entire franchise, and even then, you can pretty much skip Hobbs and Shaw, but if I'm trying to do it right and watch every single movie in order, in chronological order, not theatrical release, that's another important thing, but chronological order, then yeah, Hobbs and Shaw, like, that's the only time I'm watching it. I think I've seen it twice at this point, and every time I watch it, I kind of regret it, but, you know, it is what it is. So moving on to Fast 8. Fast 8, to me, kind of falls in line with Fast 9. It's kind of the same exact thing. Like, it was a lot of over-the-top stuff and a very forgettable movie. Now, I've seen Fast 8 because obviously it's been out longer. I've seen Fast 8 more than I've seen Fast 9, so I just feel like I remember more from Fast 8, if that makes any sense. Fast 9, I don't know, to me, like, obviously I just recently rewatched it, so it's still fresh in my mind, but they're kind of about the same, Fast 8 and Fast 9, but I would give the slight edge to Fast 8. It's still going to be in the average category, but I'm going to put it ahead of Fast 9. And that is one thing I forgot to mention. I'm ranking these within their own category as well. So as you can see, Fast 8 and Fast 9 are both average, but I'm going to give Fast 8 the advantage to move it up in the list. So they are getting ranked in their own categories as well. So moving on to Furious 7. This movie, man, this movie is hard to watch to this day for me. Every time I see the Charlie Puth song comes on, See You Again. Every time that song comes on in the movie and you have Brian and him driving off into the sunset and Dom and, you know, you thought you could leave without saying goodbye, that whole ending scene gets me every single time. There's only two movies that can make me cry, and it's Southpaw. That's another movie that you know, I don't think it really made me cry, but it kind of got me to that point because that's a really emotional movie if you've never seen that. But Furious 7, like, every single time, it just hits me. It hits different, obviously, because of the tragic passing of Paul Walker. But you know what Paul Walker meant to us, to the fans of the franchise, to the car culture, to the, you know, the underground racing culture, the street culture, all of that. What Paul Walker meant to us, and the way that we just lost him so suddenly. That's one of the only celebrity deaths. That and Kobe Bryant, I think, are the only two celebrity deaths that have ever, like, hit me. And I still remember where I was when I heard the news about Paul Walker, and you know, then having to watch this movie, man, it puts me in the feels every single time. Now, I'm not willing to call it the best movie, not at all, because it's still kind of in that same vein as like Fast 8 and Fast 9 with the ridiculousness of driving the car through 3 skyscrapers, I think it was in that movie. So it's still very over the top. But because this movie means so much to me, I'm going to put it at the very good category, just because of how much the movie means to me. I just feel like they did the sending off of Paul Walker really, really well. And it's a movie that hits me in the feels every single time. So, you know, man, I'm getting like choked up thinking about it. But we need to move on. And that's going to be moving on to Fast and the Furious 6. Now, this was, I'm trying to remember which one this was. This was the one where Letty returns. So, you know, we think Letty's dead after all this time, but Letty returns. And then this is the introduction to Shaw as well. So, this kind of really set in place the FCU as we know today. And it introduced a lot of the characters, brought back a lot of the characters. But for me, I'm probably, it's not one of my favorites, I'll tell you that much. I would probably put it in the good category. I don't know. Man, that's tough. I don't know. I honestly don't know where I would put it. I think I'm gonna put it in the good category. I don't know if I want to put it above or below Fast 10. That's kind of where my contradiction is right now. But I'm kind of, I don't know, just because I like Jason Momoa's character so much in Fast 10, I think I'm gonna go ahead and drop Fast and the Furious 6 right under him. I feel good about that. It's been a little while since I've seen Furious 6, so it's not really all that fresh in my mind, but I feel comfortable putting it there. Now, moving on to Fast 5. Honestly, this is a very controversial movie. I personally think it's one of the best movies of the franchise, but it's also the movie that kind of transitioned Fast and the Furious from being a movie about street racing and car culture and cars and all of that to turn it into this big blockbuster action high budget movie, and it brought in obviously The Rock. And I don't know. I really like the movie. Obviously, Fast and the Furious took a different turn from the original movies, but let's be real. If Fast and the Furious as a franchise would have just kept doing what they were doing with Fast and the Furious 1 and tried to just make a movie about street racing, the franchise would not be around like it is today. When you have street racing and car culture, you're talking to one small, population of people. But when you have a big Hollywood blockbuster action film, you have just a broad spectrum of people on top of the car culture people. So honestly, this movie, if it wasn't for Fast 5, I don't think the franchise would be alive today or even anywhere near as popular as it is today. And me personally, I really love the movie. It's one of my favorite movies. So I'm gonna put it in the best category. Yeah, I don't know. I really love the movie. So I'm just gonna put it in the best category. Moving on to Fast and Furious. This was the first reboot, right? So after Tokyo Drift, or after the original movie, other than Paul Walker, we didn't have any of the original cast. And in Tokyo Drift, we didn't have any of the original cast at all. And excluding also Paul Walker, we didn't have him either in Tokyo Drift. So Fast and Furious was the big movie that was supposed to bring the franchise back, have all the original cast and characters in there. But honestly, I was not a big fan of it when it first came out, and still to this day, I'm not a big fan of it. I don't know, it's really not one of my favorite movies. I don't think I would put it in the worst categories because I don't think it's bad, but it is kind of a boring movie. I'm not really all that into Fast and Furious, so I would put it on the average category. And to be honest, I'm gonna put it under Fast 8 and Fast 9. It's just that simple. While Fast 8 and Fast 9 have some ridiculous over-the-top stuff that makes no sense, it's that stuff that actually makes the movie entertaining to watch, even though it makes no sense, right? It kind of makes the movie ridiculous, but it also makes the movie extremely entertaining. So I have an easier time sitting through Fast 8 and Fast 9 because it has these big crazy action scenes, where Fast and Furious, I don't know, to me, I was never a big fan of Fast and Furious. So, it is what it is with that. So moving on to Tokyo Drift, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. Now this is an interesting movie. I feel like this movie falls in the same category that the Star Wars prequels fall into, where so many people were hating on this movie when it initially came out. But as time has gone on, people have found a much bigger appreciation for these movies. So like with the Star Wars prequels, they got so much hate when they originally came out. But now people don't really think they're that bad, especially compared to the sequel trilogy. So I feel like Tokyo Drift kind of falls in that category. It got a lot of hate when it first originally came out because obviously it didn't have Paul Walker or any of the original cast, and it had just a random cast of brand new characters that nobody knew anything about. But to be honest, this is one of my favorite movies in the entire franchise, and I think it's probably, if we're being honest, it's the most accurate movie that represents car culture. The type of cars that they use, all the Japanese imports and the styling that they used on the cars with the body kits and all the different vinyl graphics and everything like that. And even, to be honest, Twinkie's car, Bow Wow's character in the movie, I don't hate the Hulk van. I really don't. And I remember as a kid being in Islands of Adventure. It was like on a field trip or something. I might have been in like 8th grade. And Universal, they had that car from the movie on display right outside of the Hulk roller coaster. I don't know if I can find any images of it. Hopefully I can. I'll drop it in here if there's images anywhere online. But that was really awesome as a kid, just seeing that movie, seeing that awesome car that I love to this day. It is over the top and crazy, but I like it. You know, seeing that car in person at Universal Studios. And a fun fact, that same trip that I was at that I saw that car, I actually saw Michael Jordan in person at the theme park, which was wild to me. Just Michael Jordan randomly just chilling in Islands of Adventure was crazy. So, yeah, Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, hands down one of my favorite movies of all time. Or favorite Fast and the Furious movie of all time, I should say. It's not one of like my favorite movies of all time, but it's definitely one of my favorite Fast and the Furious movies of all time. I'm gonna put it under the best category. I'm gonna put it above Fast 5. Fast 5 has way more like action and big budget Hollywood type of stuff, but like I said, Tokyo Drift is, I think, the most accurate representation of car culture still to this day. So yeah, that's gonna go right in there. So moving on, we have Too Fast, Too Furious, and this movie also, I think a lot of people loved it when it came out, but I think it gets a lot of hate nowadays because it took what the original movie had of that whole original cast of characters. It only kept Paul Walker and it took out the focus on the cars and made it more of kind of a like an action cop, undercover cop type of movie, right? Where, I mean, even though the first movie, you know, Brian was an undercover cop, but the movie was about him infiltrating the street culture, where this one was they were literally just like going undercover, like as cops working with like the FBI and all this stuff. But to be honest, this is another one of my favorite movies from the franchise. I love this movie. I love the cars from this movie. Now, yes, Brian's Evo, the graphics and the color on it aren't really the best, but at the end of the day, it's still an Evo. And Tyrese's Eclipse gets so much hate. Honestly, it's one of my favorite cars of the franchise. Now, if this video does well, I think I'll rank every car from the franchise. And that's another fun thing that I would love to do, is rank all the cars, because I have a pretty unique taste in cars. And like I said, the Eclipse from Too Fast, Too Furious, that purple Eclipse, a lot of people hate on it. It's one of my favorite cars from the franchise. I don't know, there's something about it, to the point where, like, when I was in high school, I was trying to save up enough money to buy an Eclipse to try and recreate that car. So, I don't know, I just really love that car. I love the movie, I love the storyline. I love Eva Mendes in the movie as well. I'm kind of shocked that her character never really made a comeback, except for that one post-credit scene in Fast 5. But hopefully we see her, you know, sometime before the series is up, or the franchise is done, I should say. But yeah, Too Fast, Too Furious, I would put it in the best category as well. I don't know where I want to put it. I really don't know if I will put it before or after Tokyo Drift. That's really, really hard for me, because I love both movies for two completely different reasons. I mean, and you got the Skyline in Too Fast, Too Furious. You got the S2000, Suki's S2000. Jin is in the movie, which was a famous battle rapper at the time. Obviously, the introduction of Ludacris's character. Man, and why hasn't Suki made a comeback? I would love to see her make a comeback at some point in these movies. Yeah, I'm honestly stumped. I do not know where I want to put Too Fast, Too Furious. If I'd rather put it before or after Tokyo Drift. It's really tough. I think, dang, this is hard. I think just because the action scenes are really, really good in Too Fast, Too Furious, and so are the racing scenes, where some of the racing scenes, especially the last racing scene in Tokyo Drift, it was very CGI heavy and wasn't really good CGI. I would put Too Fast, Too Furious, I would just give it the slight advantage, but I mean, they're so close for me. And the garage scene, or the scramble scene, where all the cars come flying out in Too Fast, Too Furious, where they trick the cops and do the car swap in that's one of my favorite scenes of all time in any movie. I love that scene. Ah, man, so good. Alright, moving on. Last one is obviously the original Fast and the Furious, the one that started it all, the reason why we are where we are today, and why we're even making this video. It's got to go in the best category for sure. And I think growing up, I used to think Too Fast, Too Furious was the better movie in my opinion. But I've come, not that Fast and I thought the original movie was like bad by any means, but I always thought Too Fast, Too Furious, and it always just felt so much bigger. It felt just so much bigger budget, just so much grander. And to be honest, it had a bigger budget. Nobody expected this little movie Fast and the Furious to blow up and become as popular as it did. So that's why it kind of feels a little bit smaller budget compared to Too Fast, Too Furious. Too Fast, Too Furious took everything that Fast and the Furious did and like turned it up to 1 million. But there's just something, the simplicity and the small level of scale that the original Fast and the Furious have, I've come to appreciate more. And I think I have to put it in the best category as number one. If I can do that, it's kind of, there we go. I think I have to put it as number one. But to be honest, like 1, 2, and 3, they're so close for me. They're honestly, they're right there. But I think I would put the original movie as number one, just because it's so iconic and has two of my favorite movie cars of all time, with Brian's Eclipse and the Brian Supra, the orange Supra and the green Eclipse. So, and then you have Dom's RX-7, the introduction of the Challenger, Jesse's Jetta, just so many great cars in that movie, which I have on display, what you guys can't really see, but I have my whole Fast and the Furious display behind me. But yeah, so good, so good. So I feel comfortable with this list. So number one, the original Fast and the Furious. Number two, Too Fast, Too Furious. Number 3, Tokyo Drift. Number 4, Fast 5. Number 5, Fast 7. Number 6, Fast 10. Number 7, Fast 6. Ironically, number 8, Fast 8. Number 9, Fast 9. Number 10, Fast 4. And then number 11, garbage Hobbs and Shaw. Man, get out of here with that. So, wow. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I had a feeling before making this video, this is pretty much where everything would land. I don't, usually when I do these ranking videos, like some things surprise me, and I don't know, this has kind of always been like my ranking of my list of movies. So, but like I said, like on any given day, like Tokyo Drift could be my favorite, Too Fast, Too Furious could be my favorite. Fast 5 would never be my favorite just because it doesn't have that focus on the car culture that I obviously grew up loving these movies and this franchise for. But, you know, Fast 5 is just amazing. So, wow. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that is pretty much it. Let me know down below in the comments your rankings. I would love to hear what your rankings are, and, you know, let's debate about it respectfully. So, I think that's going to do it for me. I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with your friends. Be sure to follow me on Instagram. That link's in the description down below. And that's pretty much it. So, make sure you guys stay tuned for more, and I'll see you guys next time.